Hi, good afternoon. My name is Marcia Diaz, and this presentation is for the class of Counseling in Time of Crisis with Professor Alda Souza. And the title of this presentation is Crisis Awareness and Healing Presentation. From birth, human beings are vulnerable to a wide range of painful experiences that can significantly impact psychologically and emotional development. As we progress through life, we are exposed to different type of crisis and potential for trauma, which it is unavoidable sometimes. For this reason, it is essential to understand what a crisis is and the nature of a crisis to seek appropriate support system and recognize exactly what do we need help for. As Christians, crises are not only expected but can also be formative element in our journey of faith. For me, this is very important to emphasize that as Christians, we are also exposed to face crisis and to develop trauma, no matter if we are Christians or not. And later I will be explaining why that this is important for me. This presentation will explore the definitions and distinctions between crisis and trauma in a both theoretical and clinical perspective. Additional, I will be sharing a personal experience to illustrate the profound impact of crisis in my life and examine the intervention strategies and the crisis intervention approaches that facilitated my process of recovery and resilience. We are often taught to believe that a crisis must be a major catastrophic event in order to be considered significant. Similarly, trauma is sometimes misunderstood as an exaggerated reaction used by individuals to seek attention. And this statement I grabbed from my own experience in my culture. This is the way we are taught. It's just an exaggeration. It's not a big of a deal to be a crisis. However, both crisis and trauma are genuine psychological and emotional responses that vary from person to person, regardless of whether the situation is considered large or small. A crisis, from a clinical and theoretical standpoint, according to Kaplan 1964 and James and Gilliland 2017, is defined as a period of psychological disequilibrium in which an individual's normal coping mechanisms are no longer effective in managing and perceived threat or stressful events. In other words, it is not solely the event itself that defines crisis, but the person's emotional reaction and inability to cope. On the other hand, trauma is understood as the emotional, cognitive, and physical response to an event that overwhelms an individual's ability to process and recover. It often results from experiences that threatens one's sense of safety or stability, and can have long-term psychological effects. This statement comes from Herman, 1992. These reactions are valid regardless of how others may perceive the severity of the triggering event. Through my life, I have encountered many crises that have deeply impacted my sense of stability, as well as traumas I once believed I could never overcome. One of the most difficult and transformative experiences I endured was during the birth of my second child, Sophia. I was 27 years old when I found out I was pregnant for the second time. Unlikely my first pregnancy, which was filled of joy, excitement, generous support of family and friends, my second pregnancy felt overwhelming differently. From the beginning, I experienced a profound sense of sadness, emotional disconnection. I tried to show excitement, I truly want to feel it, but for a reason I couldn't explain at that time, I struggled to bond with my baby even while she was still in my womb. The day that Sophia was born, um, deepened my emotional distress. It made it worse. I was already feeling disconnected. I was feeling sad. I was crying often. But the day she was born, it was a very, how do you call it, difficult day. Because the doctor spoke to my family while I was in the hospital, and I spoke to my husband that my baby will not be born until the next day in the afternoon. So the doctor convinced my family and my husband to go home and rest, because it didn't look like I was giving birth that day that I went to the hospital. Until I was supposed to get birth the next day in the afternoon. So because we already have our first child, my husband decided that it would be a good idea to go home, take care of my oldest. She was only 1 year and a half, and he will be back then before noon the next day, as the doctor recommended. Sadly, in that moment, in that day, my baby wasn't born the next day in the afternoon. She was born the next day at 4 a.m. in the morning. Only one of my friends, very close friends, was there, and she called my husband. He tried to rush to the hospital. My family tried to rush to the hospital, but none of them couldn't make it on time. I remember when I received my baby, I was I felt this chill in my chest. It was like a cold in my chest. I prayed over her right away, as I did with my first one, but immediately I felt like a disconnection. I knew she was mine. I knew she was a blessing. I knew I should be happy. I knew that it was a moment of excitement, but unfortunately, I wasn't feeling none of those things. I was feeling disconnected, distance. My brain couldn't capture that she was mine, even though I knew she was mine. So months passed by. My husband noticed that I was crying most of the time, that I was being scared to darkness, to be alone, that I would have different type of reactions during the day, mood swings and different stuff. In the beginning, we thought it was a spiritual attack, which we continually pray. My husband tried his best. We were both very naive to these situations. To make things worse, after 3 months, my baby was born. I broke my leg, and I had to be in bed, rest forcibly for a few months. So this made it worse, creating a more severity of my symptoms, not wanting to go out, not wanting to share with people, not being able to sleep. And so because at that time, myself, my husband, and the people who surrounded me, depression was like a taboo. You couldn't talk about it in the Christian community where I belong to, because it was seen as just for people who were spiritual week. So for me to say I was suffering from depression, that was a very weak statement to talk about. So I keep it to myself, everything that I was feeling for a year and 10 months, which it felt like horrible. I couldn't enjoy my babies. I couldn't be myself. I would pretend all the time to be okay, to be this perfect wife, to be this perfect mom. But inside of me, I was distant. I wasn't living. I was not present. So one of those days, I remember in October 2013, my baby was born to January 2012. In October 2013, in my desperation, in my cry, I asked the Lord to guide me, to let me know what kind of help I need, if what was wrong with me, because I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I feel like couldn't talk to nobody. And even though my husband tried his best to help me, we were very, very naive in this area. And I remember turning on the news. It was October the 4th, 2013. And the news report came out. I was watching the TV. And the news report about Miriam Carey, a woman who had been fatally shot near to the U.S. Capitol. It was later revealed that she had suffered from postpartum depression. This happened October 4, 2013. When the news reporter started talking, started describing what postpartum depression was or is. And for the very first time, I felt somebody was describing me. She was killed because she was driving erratic in an erratic way, and she hurt few policemen, and she was killed because she went to crash to the U.S. Capitol wall, something like that. And I remember that the news reporter said all the symptoms of a postpartum depression, and he urged the people who felt that way to seek for help. For the very, very first time, I felt someone was talking to me. I felt that someone was describing me, understanding what I was going through. For the very first time, I knew I wasn't crazy, that this was real, that something has changed from the moment I was pregnant. So the recommendation that the news reporter said was to seek for help as soon as possible, and to talk to loved ones, to express loved ones, and to look for professional help. So which I followed the recommendation. I spoke to my husband, and we called a friend of mine that was a social worker. She came home, and she, as a professional, asked me what was going on, and I started sharing my feelings regarding how bad mom I was, and how horrible as a mom I was. My family, my extended family, my aunts, most of them had 4 or 5 kids, which as moms, they look like heroes. They work, they cook, they take care of the 5 kids, and I only had 2 childs, which I felt that I wasn't good enough for them. I felt that I wasn't doing right. I understand too that my hormone levels were probably everywhere. I never went to the doctor because first, as soon as I started talking about it, I started feeling well and expressing how frustrated I was. I started feeling better. It didn't took longer for me to start feeling better. Thank God I never needed medicine, which I do believe sometimes is needed to level the hormone levels. So, but I didn't need it. So she will come weekly, and it wasn't that longer when I was feeling like good about myself again. Therapy changed everything. I was finally able to express the guilt I had carried and the belief that I was a bad mother. I learned that my emotions were part of a large issue and not a reflection of my fate or worth. This is the reason why the statement I made in the beginning was so important, because as Christians, we're gonna face this situation, so we need to be open to hear people and to help people and to understand that we have emotions that we need to express, that we're gonna go through it. So we need to be open to hear our brothers and sisters too, and not to condemn them just for the way they're feeling. In Mayo Clinic, they say that postpartum depression may be mistaken by baby blues at first, but the symptoms are more intense and last longer. Symptoms usually develop with the first few weeks of giving birth, but they may begin early during pregnancy or later up to the year after birth. Understanding this gave me peace, and I realized that I was not alone, and with the professional support in my family and God's grace, I began to heal. In conclusion, experiencing crisis and trauma can profoundly affect a person's emotional and psychological and spiritual well-being. My journey through postpartum depression revealed how misunderstood and isolating these struggles can be, especially within the Christian community. Thanks to the information given through the news channel, I was able to detect what I was going through and seek help. Through professional therapy, a spiritual and family support, and a renewed understanding of my condition, I found healing and hope. Today, my daughter is 12 years old. Her name is Sofia Lisette Diaz, and she is wonderful, and we have a wonderful relationship. I thank God for his faithfulness, because his word reminds us that all things work for good to those who love God. Romans 8:28. So this has been my presentation. God bless you, and thank you.